It's a baby that grows up wild, and he don't do what you want him to. Love ain't nobody's angel child, and he won't pay any mind.
Dorothy Dandridge seemed to soar on screen with every note she sang and every close-up she commanded. From nightclub prodigy to the history-making Oscar nominee for Carmen Jones. Off-screen, however, she was learning a far harder role. Mother to Harolyn Lynn Nicholas, a child whose severe intellectual disability demanded constant care in an era that offered almost none, especially to a black woman fighting for a foothold in Hollywood. In the rest of this video, we'll trace how Dorothy's dazzling rise collided with Lynn's daily challenges, how studios, stigma, and 1950s medicine shaped their options, what part tap dance legend Harold Nicholas played, and why Lynn's later years remain such a mystery. Stay with us as we move beyond the spotlight to uncover the courage and heartbreak that seldom made it onto the marquee. Dorothy Dandridge's ascent began under the smoky lights of Harlem's Cotton Club in the 1930s. As one-third of the singing Dandridge sisters, she shared top billing with jazz greats and caught the eye of Hollywood scouts and of the club's tap-dancing headliners, the Nicholas brothers. Harold Nicholas, the younger of the duo, dazzled her off stage with the same magnetism he showed under the footlights. Their whirlwind courtship led to a Hollywood wedding on September 6, 1942, and for a moment they seemed like a fair-tale power couple, two rising black entertainers defying the odds together. Reality set in quickly. Harold's dance tours kept him on the road, his sideline passions, golf and nightlife, often keeping him away even when he was in town. Dorothy, meanwhile, juggled studio auditions, vocal coaching, and radio appearances, convinced she could anchor a family while her career took flight. Late that winter, she discovered she was pregnant, a revelation that filled her with equal parts joy and resolve. On September 2, 1943, after a long, complicated labor in Los Angeles, Dorothy delivered their daughter, Harolyn Suzanne Nicholas. The birth came with devastating news. Oxygen deprivation had left the baby with a profound intellectual disability. That single moment changed everything, testing Dorothy's marriage, stretching her finances thin, and casting a long shadow over the brilliant career she was still fighting to build. In the next section, we'll see how Dorothy balanced the demands of stardom with the relentless challenges of caring for a child the era had little idea how to support, and how that struggle reshaped her artistry, her marriage, and ultimately her legacy. From the outside, the first 2 years of motherhood looked hopeful. Harolyn, Lynn as Dorothy called her, had a healthy weight, and the soft, dimple-cheeked face paparazzi loved to imagine on the cover of fan magazines. But milestones slipped by with haunting silence. No dada, no mama, no steady gaze that lingered on her mother's smile. By Lynn's 3rd birthday, the verdict from specialists was stark. Oxygen deprivation at birth had caused permanent brain injury. Doctors told Dorothy her daughter would probably never develop beyond an early childhood level of understanding. The medical files of the 1940s used the now offensive word retarded, a label that stung every time it echoed down a hallway. In this story, we'll honor Lynn's dignity by using today's term, intellectual disability, and reserve the older language only when quoting the era itself. Dorothy's response was equal parts resolve and heartbreak. Between nightclub sets at the Mocambo and callback auditions on studio lots, she shuttled Lynn to neurologists, speech clinics, and child psychoanalysts, draining paychecks as quickly as she earned them. She practiced flashcards at dawn, then stepped into rhinestone gowns by nightfall, hoping a breakthrough word would come before the tabloids did. Hollywood image makers demanded perfection. A public battle with disability didn't fit their script, especially for a black leading lady trying to defy the industry's color line. Yet Dorothy's star kept rising. In Bright Road, she played a gentle school teacher. In Carmen Jones, she exploded into full-blown superstardom with an Oscar nomination. Each triumph financed another round of specialists for Lynn and masked the fatigue carved into Dorothy's private hours. Harold Nicholas's absences grew longer. Touring Europe with his tap act, he mailed occasional checks and affectionate postcards, but the day-to-day care was Dorothy's alone. The strain fractured their marriage, ending in divorce in 1951, and left Dorothy shouldering medical bills the size of movie budgets. And if you are into classic Hollywood icons, amazing stories, and newly discovered insights, then hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and your support will mean a lot to our channel. This is where the story tightens its grip. Fame at its peak, finances unraveling, and a mother who refused to give up. In the next part, we'll watch that private struggle break into public view when a 1963 television interview and a bold Jet magazine cover forced Hollywood and the nation to confront the reality Dorothy had carried in silence. The summer of 1963 pushed Dorothy past the limits of silence. Every nightclub engagement and film cameo was disappearing into clinic invoices and back tax notices. And when the private facility caring for Lynn refused to keep her without payment, physically returning the young woman to Dorothy's doorstep, the secret she had protected for 20 years was suddenly on full display. With no way to hide, Dorothy chose to speak. Sitting on the Mike Douglas show, her voice steady but her hands trembling just off camera, she described a daughter who needed round-the-clock help and a system that offered almost none. Days later, Jet magazine ran its now famous cover story, the tragic story of Dorothy Dandridge's retarded daughter. The term stings today. Dorothy repeated it only because it was the medical language of the moment, and she hoped shocking enough to make the public listen. The revelations brought solidarity from countless families, but punished her career. Studios that prized flawless glamour grew wary, and nightclub bookers quietly looked elsewhere. Facing shrinking income, Dorothy turned to the only affordable long-term option California offered. Lynn entered Camarillo State Hospital, an immense institution north of Los Angeles. Dorothy toured the wards, asked every question she could think of, and signed the admission papers with a resolve that cracked the moment she stepped outside. Even after surrendering daily care, she refused to abandon the fight. She recorded public service spots urging better funding for what were then called mental health schools, and answered stacks of letters from parents who saw their own struggles in hers. Yet the mathematics of care never balanced. Debts mounted, auditions dried up, and Hollywood's brightest barrier breaker found herself wondering how much of her story would be remembered at all. Inside Camarillo, meanwhile, Lynn settled into a world largely invisible to cameras and sealed by strict privacy laws. The mother who once commanded marquees and the daughter hidden from them were now separated by locked doors and institutional routines. Two lives forever linked, yet moving down paths history was already beginning to lose sight of. Dorothy fought on borrowed time. Nightclub dates dwindled to one-night stands. A promised film comeback collapsed when backers learned about her mounting debts. The IRS seized her Hollywood Hills home, and friends noticed pills replacing champagne in her evening routine. On September 8, 1965, just a week after Lynn's 22nd birthday, Dorothy was found in her tiny West Hollywood apartment, an empty bottle of antidepressants at her side. Whether the overdose was deliberate or accidental, the result was final. Hollywood's shimmering barrier breaker was gone at 42. Lynn remained at Camarillo State Hospital, now a ward of California with no close family able to claim full custody. Harold Nicholas, long divorced and still touring, sent what support he could, but lived mostly overseas, eventually remarrying and enjoying a late career revival on Broadway and in films like Tap. His death in 2000 closed another door on Lynn's personal history, leaving only distant relatives and sealed state files to trace her path. Camarillo itself shut down in 1997 as California phased out large institutions. Patients were scattered to smaller facilities or community homes. No public roster was ever released. Researchers believe Lynn was transferred somewhere within Los Angeles County, but after that, the trail fades into privacy laws and rumor. A handful of online databases list a 2003 death date, yet no official certificate has surfaced, and state agencies will not confirm or deny under medical privacy rules. The result is a silence that feels almost designed. The daughter of a woman who made history on screen slips out of history's frame entirely. What endures is the echo of Dorothy's fight, a pioneering black actress who, even as the spotlight dimmed, kept pleading for a society that could see her child's worth. Her story, and Lynn's, forces us to reckon with how fame can coexist with invisibility, how triumph can be inseparable from heartbreak, and how the barriers Dorothy broke in public never stopped her from battering against others in private. Harold Nicholas never stopped dancing. After the divorce, he based himself in Paris and London, dazzling European audiences with the same airborne splits that once lit up the Cotton Club. By the late 1970s, he was back in the States coaching Broadway choruses. In 1989, he shared the screen with Gregory Hines and Savion Glover in the film Tap, a valedictory bow to the art form he helped define. Friends say Lynn's situation weighed on him. He kept a photo of her in his dressing room kit, but distance, touring schedules, and complicated U.S. guardianship laws meant real involvement remained sporadic. A stroke in 1993 slowed his footwork. He died in New York City in 2000, survived by a second wife and a widening circle of dancers who considered him a mentor. And Lynn? Her story ends in whispers. A closed hospital, sealed files, a rumored 2003 passing no certificate confirms. What does survive is the fierce love her mother poured into every doctor's visit, every late-night rehearsal financed solely to pay another clinic bill. Dorothy Dandridge shattered Hollywood's color line on screen, yet spent her private life battering at doors that would not open for a black woman seeking decent care for her child. The contradiction is painful, but it's also the heart of her legacy. She proved that visibility in one arena does not guarantee justice in another, and that progress, however dazzling under the spotlights, can leave entire families struggling in the dark. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about the language we've outgrown, the systems we still need to fix, and the way history can vanish when records close and cameras look away. Because remembering Lynn is more than finishing her mother's unfinished song. It's naming everyone who still waits to be seen.